Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Tech Talk Q&A. This is the show every week where I go over my newsletter and all the stories that are within it and, talk about a lot of different things. Whoops, I forgot that I had the other one on. I wanted to first of all give a shout out to my publisher O'Reilly. This book is now out on print, and you can see the beautiful honey badger on the cover. It is available for sale on Amazon. Unfortunately, they've already sold out, and they need another shipment in the next couple of days. But it is available on Barnes and Noble and others. Let's go quickly back to the newsletter. As always, you can subscribe to this newsletter using the links down in the show notes. It is the Bitcoin Tech Talk newsletter. I have been doing this for about over a year, I think a year and a half, something like that. Today's one is March 4, 2019. And we have some interesting stories here. But before we get to that, let's here is my my book on Amazon. It is currently $48.28, which is a significant drop from the $70 retail price, which is great. It's also available on Barnes and Noble for around $52 and Walmart for around the same amount of money. It's a good place to grab the book. I have 10 reviews already. I did set up an author page, including my little story about how I lost 2 Bitcoins with the Ali Tin Mint Adam Smith coin way back when. Those guys are such crooks. Let's take a look at some of the stories. That he released on Sunday. I did get to take a look at it before he published it, but essentially he's talking about timestamps and what the actual parameters around that are. And he talks especially about the probability of finding blocks. On average, it should be about 10 minutes, but oftentimes it's found a lot earlier. And a lot of times it's found a lot later. Every once a year or so, you get like 4 hours where you don't have a single block. That does happen sometimes when there's just a very, very unlucky streak. So it talks about hash power time dragging. You can, if you have 6 of the last 11 blocks, make the median slow down or speed up or whatever it is that you want to do. And if you do have sort of maximum drag, you can and you can sustain it for like 2 weeks. You can sort of make the difficulty a lot easier going forward, and that's one way in which you can do certain things. Let's do the time warp again. What if an attacker did have more than 50% of the network hash power and they wanted to slow the passage of Bitcoin time? Goes into the scenarios. And it can be fixed with a soft fork that further constrains the block and so on. So anyway, it's an interesting proposal. He does talk about what Vitalik proposed in 2015 as a way to speed up blocks via soft fork, and Mark Friedenbach's Ford's block proposal, which all sort of take into account this timestamping manipulation technique in order to do some sort of a soft fork. But it's a really good article to start understanding what's going on with timestamps and what the parameters around the different things are. So I encourage you to take a look at it if you're curious at all about timestamps in Bitcoin. One thing that a lot of people get confused on is that it is 4 bytes in the block header. It's the timestamp field, and it's a Unix timestamp, which means that there's 32 bits available to express that number, and 32 bits is about 4 billion seconds, and a billion seconds, if you've studied some time math and stuff like that, is about 31 years or so. So 32 bits allows you to get about 124 years. So that's 2104. That's when you're going to run out of that space. So we're going to have to do something before then, or there might be a way to do it via soft fork. using some of this forward block stuff or whatever. A lot of people mistakenly believe that it's actually 2036 or something like that. But that's only if you use a signed integer or 31 bits. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All right, a couple of stories from the Bitcoin Developer Network. This one is GPG as a Bitcoin address. This is a really interesting concept. So you do have the SegP256K1 elliptic curve support in GPG. I believe you need GPG 2.1 at least in order to get the SegP256K1 elliptic curve support. And you can use that in order to create some sort of Bitcoin transaction with your PGP key. The thing about it is that most people use GPG1 or GPG2 and not 2.1, and you don't have the option of using SegP256K1 like you do right here. But if you have a late enough version of GPG, and you set up your key to use SegP256K1, you absolutely can use that in order to create a Bitcoin address. And that's exactly what this is doing. And this is a testnet address, MOZ5A. And and you can create a transaction and so on. This would be a really interesting project to follow. Christopher Allen's doing something called distributed identity, basically decentralized identity, self-sovereign identity, and he's using the Bitcoin blockchain to do that. This would make it more or less trivial. Whenever you move some amount of coins that are designated as your identity, then the new key would be the same as like your PGP key, and it could be somewhat backwards compatible with a lot of PGP key signing. By the way, guys, I am signing some of these books, and one of the things that I'm finding is I want to make sure that it's verifiable, right? Like I want people to know that this was actually signed by me. And I wanted to incorporate a digital signature into it. So I do actually physically hand sign the books, but I also take a picture of it and sign a PGP message saying the image with the SHA-256 hash, which is this, is something that I actually made. And that is available on my website. You can actually go and download it. And that's how I plan to do it with a little QR code and everything else. I'll show you guys later that I have a bunch of QR code stickers. Well, actually, maybe not, because I want it to remain private. This is the exact sort of thing that like people say, oh, you need a blockchain for it. No, you don't. No, you don't. The only people that should know about like the actual like message that I put inside of a book are me and the person that's receiving it, and possibly anyone that person wants to show. Not like the entire world. And that's one of the things that I want to show with the signing of the book that I am doing. By the way, if you are in Austin for South by Southwest, I will be having a book signing March 14th after the first panel that I'm on. It's a featured panel, Blockchain Deathmatch. So please show up for that, and I will do the full signing with PGP key and everything else. I will have my laptop set up for doing that exactly. Anyway, it's a really cool article, and it's essentially using SegP256K1 for both PGP and for Bitcoin signing. All right, here is another story from Bitcoin Developer Network, Introduction to Bitcoin Programming with Bitcoin JS and Bitcoin Core. This has a bunch of articles, and it's got at least 8 articles here, and you can click on each article, getting started. What are the things that you need? What can you do with it? You can generate and import wallets. You can do legacy pay-to-pub key hash, native SegWit, embedding data, Bitcoin script puzzles, multi-signature transactions, time lock transactions. And you could do this all on JavaScript. I know a lot of people do a lot of JavaScript because it's the lingua franca of the web. So it might be a very good way to learn more about Bitcoin and Bitcoin programming. Certainly, it's going to make it a lot more accessible to those JavaScript programmers learning all of this stuff, especially in combination with something like my book, where you can learn like the internals of Bitcoin, and then you can have access to a lot of that stuff through the Bitcoin core interface with Bitcoin JS and so on. So very good resource. I really like this website, Bitcoin Developer Network. I would encourage you to take a look at it. All right, Antminer firmware update, February 2019. At Bitmain, security of end users is our top priority, and we are committed to ensuring this as new risks emerge. Our team closely monitors the technology ecosystem to identify new and evolving threats. As part of that vigilance, we have recently been made aware of by the open source community of a potential vulnerability relating to our firmware. In response, and as a matter of priority, our team has released new firmware updates for the Antminer S15 and Antminer T15 to fix this vulnerability. Despite our continuous efforts, absolute protection from all possible attacks remains an elusive goal, and therefore a collaborative effort of the global community is imperative for the strongest defense. We are most grateful to the open source community for continuing to identify and responsibly report new vulnerabilities. As contributors and users of open source code, we recognize and respect its ethos. To ensure continued compliance with the requirements of open source code, we have formed a special team and created new internal procedures. Installation guides and new firmware releases can be downloaded from service.bitmain.com support download. So basically, somebody found a big vulnerability and basically reported it responsibly to Bitmain so that they could fix their Antminers. But this does not say what the actual vulnerability is. So we know that it's a pretty serious one because they felt the need to release new firmware in order to do this. We know that Slushpool has their own firmware for a lot of these Antminers. I would probably encourage you to use those because they are a little better tested and so on. But this is telling you that there's something going on here, and we don't know exactly what it is, but something has happened at Bitmain, and I'm sure we'll find out in the coming weeks exactly what the vulnerability was. But it's important to know about this stuff to keep sort of like a scorecard of who has major vulnerabilities, because a lot of the stuff that are security threats sort of pass in the background. A lot of people talk about it in the background and don't necessarily reveal it to the public, lest hackers get at it and start taking over like S15s willy-nilly. So, this is a decent way to figure out how many companies have like real vulnerabilities and so on. And these are the things that you need to pay attention to if you do care about security. All right, next story. Announcing C-Lightning 0.7 now with more plugins. So C-Lightning is a Lightning implementation from Blockstream. The interesting thing about the 0.7 release is that they have a plugin architecture. And that means that you can add plugins in this really modular way. And here's like a pretty good example. This one's the CSV export pays. So if you are doing a lot of transactions on Lightning, it's often hard to keep track of how many actual transactions that you did. And especially for accounting purposes and things like that, if you are spending and need to figure out like the tax liabilities and things, then this is what you need to keep track of. Now, there's a plugin that lets you just sort of download all of the actual payments that you've made with Lightning in a nice CSV format, which you can import into Excel and do whatever you want with it. So kudos to them for making something like this. And I really hope that this sort of thing becomes a standard. I'm hoping that like this sort of like CSV file becomes some sort of like a bib, so like everyone can sort of code to it and have some sort of universal format that you can use to download all that stuff. Groobles spark a new GUI for C-Lightning. This is I don't think it uses the plugin backend, but it is a GUI on top of C-Lightning. And the idea is that you hook up your phone app to the backend C-Lightning server that you have. And it's pretty cool. It's GUI based on Electron. It's got a mobile app. And I guess it's from this Nadav Ivgi. Really cool stuff. There's a little demo video over here, and you can get like the Lightning payment request and so on. You can install Spark on Android or Linux, and you can make it remotely accessible, which is really awesome as well. There's Let's Encrypt integration. And you have the desktop Electron app, and you can go to the star blocks and order stuff on testnet. So really cool stuff. Lightning continues to just sort of develop, and there's a lot of people working on sort of interesting UI concepts and things like that. And this would definitely be in among those things. And you can. It uses the bits notation, which I think is more intuitive personally. Anyway, good stuff. Would encourage you to play with it, especially if you're into Lightning. Couple of really terrible stories, honestly. First one is a Coinbase executive was talking to Cheddar, and they were asked about Neutrino, which is a company that does a lot of like shady things, but they're basically a bunch of hackers. And basically, this executive was asked about Neutrino, and the quote from the article is, "We are aware of the background of some of the folks that were involved in Neutrino, and we are looking into that. The compelling reason for making the acquisition was that Neutrino had some really industry-leading and best-in-class technology." And further down, it says, "It was important for us to migrate away from our current provider," Sandler said when asked about why Coinbase bought Neutrino. "They were selling client data to outside sources, and it was compelling for us to get control over that and have proprietary technology that we could leverage to keep the data safe and protect our clients." So, in other words, if you've had data on Coinbase in any way, shape, or form, somebody was selling it. How Coinbase allowed that, and how that's not some sort of a breach of contract, it is just absolutely mind-boggling. What the hell? If you're a Coinbase customer, you should be absolutely outraged. Any transaction that you did that's linked to Coinbase, some third party knows about, right? And that is just absolutely unconscionable. Like I can't imagine there not being some sort of a lawsuit about this, because this is such an egregious violation of privacy. And they have some sort of a duty to protect your privacy. I'd have to look into the terms and conditions of their website, but there is a delete Coinbase movement for that reason. They apparently they work with vendors that were selling user data, and they acquired somebody that is known for lots of hacking and doing bad things. So not good. The other story that's really kind of terrible is Coinomi. They are doing a lot of shady things. And there's a website now called avoidcoinomi.com, which is what I'm pointing to right here. Essentially, this guy is saying, okay, they compromised this wallet. It had $60,000 to $70,000 worth of crypto in there, and they were doing some really, really terrible things. So, in many ways, like even if the private keys are on your phone, it might be copied over somewhere or whatever. So you have to be really, really careful, guys. And this is something that, like not your private keys, not your coins. And that might apply even to coins that are, like private keys that you think should be only on your phone, but sometimes is on like some server or something like that. So don't use Coinomi. Probably shouldn't use a lot of these. The only one I would really trust are like offline type wallets, or maybe Bitcoin Core or something like that. Those where you generated the private key offline and they've never been online. I mean, that's the best class security that you want. Anyway, let me show you some of the South by stuff. South by Southwest.com. And yeah, so that is, let's see, how do I find out yeah, so I am on a few panels. Okay, and I think there's a little search thing where you can find all this stuff that I'm on. But basically, I have a book signing March 15th, 4:30 to 5. I have, the featured session, Blockchain Deathmatch, March 14th, and why VCs have joined the block party at Hilton Austin downtown. So yeah, so I got two things at Hilton Austin downtown and a book signing at the Austin Convention Center. They're both happening on the 14th and 15th. I think that's next Thursday and Friday. I would love to see you guys. Like I said, I have a PGP book signing. It'll be a lot of fun, and you can take a look at the actual panel here. Yeah, so Christopher Ferris, Cesare Frassisi, and Angela Walsh. The other one is, let's see, what is the other one? The other one is why VCs have joined the block party, Gil Beta, Elise Kylene, and Rachel Wolfson. So we're gonna have a good time, and I think I have a call later and figuring out exactly what we're gonna do there. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm on both panels. It'll be an interesting thing to play with. Anyway, let me see if there are any questions on chat. Let me stop screen sharing and let's take a look at the chat. Hi, Jimmy. Do you touch on Lightning Network in your programming book? Well, so it turns out that Lightning is actually very, very complicated, and the scripts that you need, the entire Bolt standard, the entire concept of hash time lock contracts, even stuff like Neutrino, they need a lot more setup before you can really understand Lightning. So my plan is to have some sort of a wallet book, which will introduce a lot of those concepts. And the final one will be and then I can have some sort of like a Lightning book. But it's going to take some time before we get there. But I mean, you still need the foundation, and that's what this book is about. All right, let's see. Your explanations are great. Thanks. Do you have thoughts on Sphinx send mode proposal for Lightning Network? I do not yet. I haven't studied that well enough. Follow up, could having static Lightning network addresses become a security issue? Of course. I mean, like any sort of routing where you have a static address compromises your privacy to some degree. So, that'll have some privacy implications, and privacy implications are always security implications, because once a bad guy knows about you, you can get targeted for certain things and so on. Let's see. Pound that like button. Thanks. What are the main risks when purchasing a pre-built Lightning node? Any ways to mitigate without spinning your own node? The thing about like a pre-built Lightning node is you don't really know the source of the hardware and things like that, what backdoors they might put in and so on. I think somebody was asking about Casa, like why did it like send 33 bytes to Facebook, right? Like there's no reason in the world that they should contact Facebook in any way, shape, or form. But those are the sort of things that you have to sort of watch out for. I do like the stuff like Raspberry Blitz, which is like all commodity hardware, and you can like sync it all from scratch and do it on your own. But there's always going to be some sort of trade-off between building your own versus having to trust some people. You're gonna do a lot less work by trusting some people, but by definition, you're trusting people, so it's not quite as secure. So that's something that you have to think about. And yeah, I mean, you can always make your own node, and there are instructions aplenty to do a lot of that. And Pierre Rochard has done a lot in just like trying to make it as easy as possible by doing like a one-click install with Lightning power users and stuff. All right. And that is about it. All right. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, my book is available on Amazon. And I will be doing signing next week. And, you know, I'll be, I think I'm going to be in Boston I think March 26th or so. And I will be speaking at MIT and doing a book signing there as well. I'll also probably be doing that at Consensus and Magic Crypto Friends conference, where I'll also be speaking. Anyway, lots of things coming up in the coming months. If you are interested in learning about this directly from me, I do have the New York seminar coming up right around Consensus. You can sign up at programmingbitcoin.com. That, by the way, is my new domain. Programming Blockchain will just redivert to there. And I'm trying to, you know, pump up the book a little bit. I would love to see it do really, really well, so I can write a second book, Programming Wallet, something like that. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys. And this song is done.